Hello and welcome back to the Crown of Command, guys. Thank you again for tuning into this video. Today is a bit of a special one as I'm going to go through the very first catalogue I got from Games Workshop way back in 1990. And I refer to this era as Oldhammer, as Brian Ansell was still at the helm of the company and they were producing some of the best miniatures, if not the best miniatures on the planet at the time. And this is my first real exposure to it apart from HeroQuest. So it left me with a lot of questions as to what these things were and how they sort of placed within the game of HeroQuest. But of course, they weren't part of HeroQuest, they were part of something much bigger, much greater. And that was part of their core games, the first one being Warhammer Fantasy Battle, which upon seeing this, and I'm glad this was the very first page because that's what I was generally interested in, pulled me into seeing all these mass ranked models all together in units, not on an actual board, with fixed tiles and fixed placement of models. This is more open, and it just left me thinking, wow, I really want to get this book. I really want to try collecting these models. I really want to experience playing this fantasy medieval game. And later I did, and I got the book, but the rules were so complex at that time that I just couldn't get my head around the rules and that kind of thing. So it took a couple of very smart Norwegians to help me out, and we had a bit of a muck around with some models on the floor hammer, of course, and we played. Well, I hope it was Warhammer Fantasy 3rd Edition. If not, it just seemed like a rat tag of models that just didn't, wasn't really cohesively fitting to anything. It just was just whatever we had at the time that we could throw on the table, on the floor, I should say, and roll some dice and play. So, but I hope to experience it again in the future and see what it's all about, because I know 3rd Edition holds in many people's hearts to be the ultimate edition. So I look forward to exploring that more. Now I've got the Warhammer Siege book now and the castle, the Mighty Fortress. So it has been one of my dreams to play that out, a proper siege battle. So hopefully we'll do that in the future. So next up was Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, which I did have. I bought it from a guy at school in my social group. He was an avid role player. I was not, but he had this book for sale with a supplement, and I bought it, and I just enjoyed looking at the art more than playing the game. I think I played the game once or twice in my hobby career, and I would like to revisit it again, especially using these old dungeon floor plans and using the Oldhammer models, and that's what it's all about, I think. That gives you the greatest sense of what Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay was like back then. And I just enjoyed the illustrations, Tony Ackland and Martin McKenna and John Blanche and Gary Chalk and all these people who had contributed towards building the world from their imaginations really gave me more of a sense of what Warhammer was all about, more so than reading the books and that kind of thing. It's got these interesting little footnotes here in the works, and I think they've got a couple of these in amongst the pages here, talking about different supplements that will be coming as well down the track, and whether they actually materialize, I don't know. The Horned Rat, I think Jerry was talking about that in yesterday's podcast in our interview, and I've never seen that one before. Realms of Sorcery, I've not seen that either. Swathe of Undeath, no. So a lot of stuff I just wasn't exposed to, just didn't see. Maybe because I was just living in the wrong country and these things just never made it across to Australia. Warhammer Rogue Trader 40k was something I never really got into. I had it explained to me once when I was, 18 or so, and just didn't grip me, just didn't grab me. But I hope to explore Rogue Trader at some point in the future and give it a good go to make up my mind on whether it's better than 2nd edition, even though I think 2nd edition and Epic especially is where my heart lies with the Warhammer 40,000 universe. But it's all interesting to see the supplements, the artwork especially, I love all the old artwork that make up these books, more so than the rules sometimes. And it's just lovely to have as a reference material on hand when painting some of the old classic models, which I do love. While the Orcs, now we actually gave that book a review. I think Nigel Stillman was the mad man behind all that back in the early days, along with Brian Ansell, forming the race of the Orcs, and they came with 3 different books, of course, and we'll have to go cover the other 2 books at some point in the future, as they'll kindly donate it to me for that very specific purpose. So we'll have to do that at some point when I've got some more time. And Space Hulk, first edition, and never played it, but been very interested in, especially the G-Stealer and the Deathwing expansions, when they brought in things like hybrids and they brought in psychic powers and that kind of thing. So I've watched Life of Die, the videos on YouTube where Craig and his friend go through and, Gordon, I think it's Gordon and Craig, they go through a set of missions together using the first edition and using the expansions and that kind of thing. It looks really cool. And it's got 3D role play. It hasn't got solo play, so I'm really interested in the solo play box sets, because that way I can play by myself. Sad old bugger that I am, because I've got no one else to play with them. So Advanced Space Crusade, another game I'm really interested in, never played it. The internal artwork for the tiles and everything is something out of a, 1970s psychedelic experience movie, but it looks pretty cool. I love the Scout models because I had Ultramarines as one of the everything in a box type of cheap games you could pick up and play, sort of a mini game of Space Hulk, and it contained all those wonderful Scouts, and it's got all the Tyranid warriors in there, of course. Yeah, but it looks pretty cool. I've heard some things about it which it makes it seem very interesting to play out, so hopefully one day. Mighty Empires, also played it only once very briefly, but it looks like a really cool game, and I'd love to play that again, maybe in a campaign setting, matching or adding Man of War and maybe 4th edition or 3rd edition Warhammer to it one day in the future. Talisman is something I do have, got it when I was about 17. The 2nd edition box set, and absolutely love it. You can play with anybody. My family, my mum used to play it with me, my sister, my brother. People just come over and play it. Anybody. It's so open to everybody playing it. So one of the best board games ever released, but it's got a bit of a love-hate relationship. Some people really don't like it at all, the randomness about it, but I really enjoy that. And it, of course, came with all these metal models, which I did see in the comic store at that time, but I never bought any. But I would imagine they're worth quite a pretty penny nowadays if you have a full collection. One of those beloved board games, and I hope you've enjoyed my solo plays of this, and there's more to come, of Advanced HeroQuest. I've really enjoyed it. It's one of those games where nothing will ever be the same. Each adventure is different. Each one you play is different because it's all randomly generated, and I really enjoy that aspect to the game. Plus the mechanics are really fun as well. So please stay tuned for more of that as we get the adventures to resurface and to re-equip and maybe take some new henchmen in different kinds, like war dancers and troll slayers and that kind of thing. That'd be quite fun. Blood Bowl. Now this is 2nd edition. Blood Bowl came with the plastic models and the styrofoam board. I actually bought this one in the early 2000s or so, but never got to play it. It was more of a collector's piece. It was in really good condition, but I just never got to play it. And of course, as of all things, they got sold before I left to come to Japan. But I'd be interested in giving it a go. Dungeon Bowl seems more interesting to me because I just like the concept, and I love those dwarf figures. Those dwarf models are just wonderful. And the elves too. They're really, really nice, those plastics. But I love dungeon crawling. So dungeon crawling and Blood Bowl together seems like a really cool mix. I know there's some new iterations of that out there, but I'd really like to play the originals as they were. Epic Battles looks at Adeptus Titanicus, which I've never played. I would love to get it because I've heard all good things about it. And I just love Epic. So if it's just got big robots, battling it out over, you know, cities. That seems cool to me, but I do love the scale of, you know, having infantry, vehicles and Titans all mixed together in Epics. That's first edition, Space Marine, and I would love to play that again. I've never played it, so I'd love to experience that at some point, because I know it is different from second edition. It's more crunchier. It's got it's got more rules regarding vehicles and that kind of thing, and it takes longer to play, but I would love to experience it because I've got all the supplemental material in White Dwarf, of course, to add to it, and it just makes it a different experience. The Warhammer books, so with all the different authors with various different names that were, I think, not their real names. They've got like ghost writers or whatever they are, or use aliases or whatever. But yeah, didn't get many of those, but I love the covers. The cover's great. And of course, White Dwarf. Now, it says here they're celebrating their special anniversary for 100 issues. And so that tells you how old this catalogue is. It's quite old now. And looking at all the covers too, got all Les Edwards artwork on the front cover, John Sipic as well, and yeah, so that really shows its age. Citadel Colour was, of course, a thing then with their paints and brushes, and I'll never forget those box sets I bought with all the Bob Naismith and Dave Gallagher artwork on the front. Just amazing, and it revolutionised painting for me forever, and I think for many people too, when they switched out their horrible smelly Humbrolls for these beautiful acrylic paints that just made our lives so much better when painting. And following this particular painting guide here, which I don't have sadly anymore, but it was really nice. It had a lot of detail stuff on there, and there is a scan of that on Facebook, and I'll have to give that a review at some point, just using the scan as a way of doing that. And a bit of a shout out to Stompy51. He's a follower of my channel, and I've just recently found his channel. I didn't even know he had one. And he actually reviews some of these fantasy miniature books. He's got 2 of those he reviewed, and they are just basically photographs of Golden Demon entries from that time. I think it was 89 and 90 from memory, around that era. So they were really interesting to see and hear his comments about some of the paint jobs and that kind of thing. The banners are just amazing of those Oldhammer models. Really cool. The brushes, I remember using them, but I can't remember if they were any good or not. I can't remember. But they came in like a pack, like a box. And they're all sable brushes, so they're proper artist brushes. And we come to the end. I told it was going to be very brief. It wasn't very long, but it gave you sort of the core games that were out at the time, and it gives me a lot of happy memories going through this and looking at all those games and miniatures and seeing what it was like back in those days. And I hope it gave you a bit of retrospective of, if you've never seen this particular catalogue, of what it was like back then in 1989, 1990. It's got here 1991, so maybe 1991 was when this was issued. But even then in 91, it was still very much considered Oldhammer. So guys, hope you enjoyed the video. And talking about Oldhammer, Oldhammered, the channel, YouTube channel, also did a really good review of this particular catalogue, and I'll leave a link in the show notes to check that out, because he did a great job over there as well on that, and it really brought me a lot of happiness watching that video. So guys, until next time, take care of yourselves, and see you when I see you. Bye-bye.